Welcome back to BreakBeatCode. My name is Richard Ashe, and up next, we're going to have a conversation with Micah Brown. Micah is a technology-focused, exited startup founder, investor, and product manager. Micah was previously CEO of Sentiment Capital, an NYC-based venture studio and fund, investing a total of 10 POC-owned startups over 5 years, and acquired in 2022. He was also founder of BrainRap Records, acquired in 2020. And the CEO and founder of Sentiment, a neurodata AI company acquired in 2019, and Film Funder, which is an AI-driven film technology acquired in 2018. So clearly we have a pattern. Micah has worked as a senior technology consultant and manager within the insurance industry, as well as in commercial retail investment banking at Barclays. Micah also worked with media technology for Viacom and NBC and has a culminating 16 years of technology experience as a product engineer and C-level executive. Micah pioneered neuro-data-driven artificial intelligence. In the field, he created neurosentiment as early as 2014, writing groundbreaking white papers and ultimately being the first British person of color in American history to commission a neuroscience AI study with the Kansas University Medical Center and to gain investment from Sprint in 2019. Micah made history again by being one of the first people of color in U.S. history to win the People's Choice Award at MIT for his work. Micah made history once again as he became the first Black founder and Uxbridge College alumnus to have a company that was admitted to the Abbey Road Red program in 2021. Micah grew up in Catford, South London, raised by great parents despite many economic hardships. Micah received a higher diploma from Uxbridge College in 2009 and gained the opportunity, due to his academic and work achievements, to move to the U.S. in 2013. Micah has done a great deal of charitable work, working on CCNY Codes Initiative, which saw 300 people of color from CCNY gain roles at Amazon, Facebook, and Google for the first time in the college's 113-year history. So please welcome Micah Brown. Micah, good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Hello. How are you?
I'm really well. Yourself?
I am marvelous.
You and I have known each other for a while,
Yeah.
But the audience, some of the audience doesn't know you yet. So tell me a little bit about you.
Yeah, I just try and keep the grift on myself. I guess I like to introduce myself now through the universities so people can compute that a little bit. So I guess you could say I'm a computer scientist by training through Uxbridge College undergrad. And then I recently got a postgrad at Columbia University in private equity and venture capital. I think my second, career is probably as a financial engineer. That's, the background. But I think my primary, passion and career passion is neuroscience, especially neuroscience within digital environments, within biohacking environments, anywhere where, the machine is meeting the person. I really enjoy and I appreciate and I indulge in that. So, yeah.
Well, you have a lot of recent ventures, but tell me about BrainRap.
And so BrainRap was born out of my own artist experience. So for a long time, I was pure kind of financial engineer, data person, things like that. And then about 5-6 years ago, I ended up getting signed to a label. And although it was an incredible experience and there was some incredible things happening and so on and so forth, I saw some negative things. I definitely saw some negative things. And when I saw those negative things, I just, my engineering brain kicked in and it's these are not things that are impossible to fix, right? Simple example, people get paid, how people get paid, right? And it's how people get paid today is, they spend a lot of energy and time on something and passion, and then they get paid 1/1,000,000th of what it's worth, literally, right? That's somebody sat in a room and went, this is a good idea. We should pay people 0.0, however many zeros and then a 1. And I'm that doesn't make sense. That's not really that hard of a problem to solve, especially because we have a new revolution where you have this hardware, that's in our bodies and it can connect directly to a computer. And if you have good enough ideas, right, and that stream is available, you will rise to the top again. You will become that, avant-garde, that whatever you want to call it. And so I invented a headset at MIT with a team that I had at the time, and we put it together in a week. And that headset basically, initially what it did was it created VR environments based on neuroscience information directly from the user, right? And then we graduated a little bit and we turned it into a 24-karat gold headset, right? These 24-karat gold headsets, the reason they're gold is because there's signal clarity to that. and you could eventually, do thought to screen, and the EEG information would identify and label words, show them on the screen. And then we had artists like, some Grammy-nominated artists, some incredible studios. And BrainRap is called BrainRap for two reasons. So it was originally called the BrainRap Project at MIT. When it was invented, it was a project. We didn't know where it was going. We had no idea. We had no plan. We just said, look, there's an objective, and the objective is, can we connect this to that? Right. And we did.
This being literally your brain to that being a computer, and off you go. But like, were you thinking rap as a hip hop at that time, or like literally just rap in your brain?
Yes, that is deliberate. And so we went from the BrainRap project to BrainRap Artificial Intelligence. That's the company name, right? Mm-hmm. And that transition happened in 2020. And so I think that was a spiritual transition too, because we went from a VR environment creation engine to like a linear word creation engine with a connection between the person and the headset, right? First of all, I really started inventing the precursors to this technology in 2014.
Huh.
But the computational capability, the connection capability, the energy storage, the physical storage, the materials just didn't exist for what I was, or at least in the civilian world, right? It didn't exist in what I was trying to do for us. Right? So I had to wait, right? I had to wait for a long time, for 5 years, right? Like to get to the point where those things existed. And the company they existed at is a company called Neurable. And originally I was using the Emotive, right? The Emotive, which is, an ubiquitous, well-known neuroscience tool, research tool. So it's also gamified. The problem with the Emotive is, one, the SDK, the API was closed. I mean, it's you can code on it, but it's not yours, right? So, and then the other thing is, there was a lot of noise on that device, right? By noise, I mean when you think, right, it creates electrical signals, and what happens generally is they're across a couple of different waveforms: alpha, beta, gamma, so on and so forth, right? And so what computers can do today is they can differentiate that. Then what you can do is you can deduct scholastically and quantitatively what the meaning is, right? So what you can do is you can say, oh, Micah just said hello, right? And this is hello, right? And then this is cow, and this is park, and this is so on and so forth. And you build a library, right? That's actually not that hard. There's lots of labs across the country that have been doing that for years. You can label things very easily. Great. Now, can you deduct creative reasoning from that labeling? By creative reasoning, I mean notes, I mean tenors, tempo, BPM, and I mean intention. And that's what differentiated us at the hackathon. We did that, right? We did it in a week. And we did the Neurable that you're talking about, is this huge space age looking, it's like this big. And at that point, they never released one to the public other than for R&D purposes at universities. So long story short, we did that big thing and we won something called the People's Choice Award. The People's Choice Award is actually an evolved version of the MIT Excellence Award, which I think goes back a really long time in hackathons and like academic experiences at MIT, right? In the People's Choice Award is the first year where they opened up and they let the people of Boston vote. Usually it's a panel, right, of, like very old guys, and, and they assess you using whatever closed assessment system they use. And FYI, that was not my first hackathon at MIT. That was my third. We were always in the top 10, but we never won. So deduct what you will from that. Anyway, so, Jacqueline Assar is an amazing entrepreneur. She used to work at Magic Leap. I don't know where she is today. I have to double check. But she created this award because she realized there's some holes in how the winning computation is happening, right? And so she did that, and we won it. We were the first to win it, me and my team. We were all people of color apart from Adam, who's from Ohio, really great guy. But it was an all POC team other than me. So, and that was actually another first at MIT, right? So that then generated an article in Fast Company talking about the entire experience, where I look dramatically younger than I do now, right? And that article actually really set the tone for my year in 2019, because I had really taken the leap entrepreneurially. It paid off, within the year, it became a company. Money was raised, right? I ended up with a completely different set of financial circumstances than I had previously had in 12 months. And I also discovered transcendental meditation that year. So, for most of the year, we continued to use the Emotive. But then I was introduced to Dr. Boris Goldstein, world-renowned neuroscientist out of California. And I was introduced to him in 2020 in the pandemic. And we collaborated on creating the BrainRap BrainBeat headset, which is a 24-karat gold headset, which has a gold receiver at the front for galvanic skin response, and then 4 electrical receivers on the side. And that really took BrainRap to the next level, because now it was a proprietary device, right? It was something that we create from scratch ourselves. And I definitely also think that there's a lot of spiritual significance to the fact that it's gold, right? You know, there's definitely a spiritual, special thing that happens when artists use it for the first time, especially, you know, artists of color, and they're putting on a gold headset, and that headset can, you know, basically create unlimited amounts of opportunity for them. And yeah, that was 2020, and then through 2021 and 2022, yeah, it just grew. It just naturally, organically grew. And we're in the process now of having some exit conversations so that it can be part of a bigger story, a bigger machine.
So it sounded like where this started, and then like sort of kind of unpack a few lessons here. Like you kind of took the technology that you had at that time. You're a great example of a visionary ahead of their time, where the technology fortunately actually caught up. Yeah. So you're ahead of your time. The technology catches up. You know, you create that bridge yourself in many ways. But you start off with kind of like this off the shelf sort of technology, this kind of clunky sort of demo device. Is like kind of sound like almost something out of like, you know, Back to the Future helmet.
That's exactly what it was. Yeah.
Right. And then, but then like you kind of refine that in your, like, it sounds like you're refining like the hardware interface, this like the actual BrainRap device. At the same time, it sounds like you're refining the way you're thinking about what you're trying to actually achieve, right? At the same time. So, and like these things are kind of happening in parallel. So it'd be really interesting to like understand like how did that work? I mean, how much is that like inspiration in the moment? How much of that is just like learning from like actually, you know, people using it? How much of this is just sort of like these moments of like huge inspiration? Like I'm really curious about that process, because you went on this like really, really interesting journey that had all these different levels to it. There's sort of like your own personal level where you're going. There's the actual technology platforms developing, and like your intent in so many ways. Like,
yeah. So I mean, what I wanted to build is always very, very clear. You want something which has enough mystique so that the user is not able to game it, right, or feel like they're gaming it, right? They've got to actually push into their natural ability, because that's actually what drives an artist. Most of the time, the best artists in the world, whether it's music artists, whether it's muralists, whoever, right, they're very comfortable. So that's actually what leads to financial stagnation as well. So that was my first part of it. It needs to be able to push you, right? Then it needs to be easy. Whatever it is, it needs to be easy. And then also it needs to be connected, right? Eventually it needs to be the new iPhone, right? And at Abbey Road, you know, I called it a consciousness market, right? You know, that is what we're heading to, right? So anyway, those are my 3 things. And like initially, it just wasn't very easy to use. It wasn't very ubiquitous, right? It did push people, and it wasn't that connected. It connected to a computer, but it was like this huge Bluetooth receiver.
Sorry, at that point, when it's connected to the computer, at that stage, like this is your, like what year is this? This is like 16, 17, like where are we now? Because like 2014 was originally started, and like
so this is 19. Everything before 19 was pretty much theory. I mean, I had other companies that kind of were based around things and whatever, but it was all theory in terms of the hardware, right? I did a lot of software stuff, you know. In 2016, on the first company in my entrepreneurial journey, Sentiment, I was able to link up with some of the guys at the Gallant Lab in UC Berkeley, and they gave me a data sample set, which I was able to use to do neuro focus groups, right? But that was all software, you know, it was all software. 19 was the first time the rubber hit the road of like, all right, it's possible to build this now, right?
When you were going through this process, at some point at different stages, a lot of people feel like a sense of imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
They feel like sometimes like, you know, when you're coming up as an entrepreneur, it's like, do I deserve to be in this room? Is my product good enough? Is my idea good enough? Like I'm at version 0.01. Should I even be putting this out there in the world in the first place? Even if I know it's going to get there, like there's all different types of like, am I ready? Is this the right place and time, like how do you deal with that? Because I think like what I've learned from other conversations that some of that there's an objective truth to that, right? Maybe the product isn't quite ready, or like maybe like you're not exactly where you want to be yet, but like you still gotta keep momentum, and you are in that room for a reason. So like how do you cope with, like, there's a lot of different stuff. There's like combination can be self-doubt, it can be like concerns about the readiness of the thing that you've built. Like how do you manage all that and kind of keep it together? Because like different signals and things you can take away from like what you're thinking and feeling as you go, like kind of grow your company.
Imposter syndrome, right? Imposter syndrome comes about when two things happen, right? You believe you're not supposed to be in the space that you're in, number one. And that belief then translates into action. You take actions that exclude you from that space. Right?
Huh.
So how that works for a lot of Black entrepreneurs, right, is they will have that belief. They might have the Ivy League education, right? Like I happen to have one now. Great. Well, right. And then they have the Ivy League education. They prove themselves in that environment. They work very hard, so on and so forth, right? Then they get into a place where they have access to, because of that education, that leverage, that experience. But when they get there, they tell themselves that they're unprepared. If you tell yourself that you're unprepared, if you tell yourself anything you tell yourself, if you allow it to exist, if you allow it to marinate, if you allow it to live, right, it will grow massively. I think I went through a lot of pain, right, before I even made BrainRap, right? You know, my life, there's some amazing bits to it, and there's been some painful bits, right? You know, where I grew up, there's a lot of pain, right? There's a lot of people who are underprivileged, right? There's a lot of people who have nothing, right? But, you know, we find a way to create community. You know, that's the Jamaican, South London, Caribbean, you know, spirit. You know, wherever you are, whether it's South London, whether it's Southside Queens, whether it's California, that's what you happen to find, right? And so that stuck with me. That's the first thing, right? And then I only just got this Ivy League education. I didn't have this when I made this stuff, right? So then the other thing was, you don't know how wrong you are. If you are going into a space and you're like, I'm just gonna be wrong. People are saying these words, fail fast, you know, lean, okay, I'm gonna believe it, right? I'm gonna come in there and this is probably gonna be terrible. It's gonna be wrong. It's not gonna work, right? It's gonna fall to pieces as soon as you touch it. Great, I'll just go away and I'll fix it and I'll come back. And I think I don't know if it's me specifically or some algorithm for my particular life, right? Very specific events. But that's a big part of what got BrainRap off the ground. Everybody always calls it the overnight hit. I made 4 companies before I made BrainRap. And 3 of them miserably, tragically, dismally, and metaphorically failed, like spectacularly in public view, right? And I got to the point where I was just desensitized. I was like, all right, great, right? Let's do it. Yeah, cool. And I think that, again, uniquely qualified me, because it's like a lot of people are so scared of that level of failure. And I think the only difference is I happen to do it while I look like this, right? Like, you know, it's like, it's easy to disintermediate from, I don't know how this happened, but for some reason, people really disintermediate the body I live in from my particular journey, right? I think it makes it easier to accept the things that I've achieved, right? But it definitely is a factor, right? And I think that it's hard for some people to theorize, you know, how color really plays into entrepreneurship, because the messaging is that there are Black VC funds, you know, there are Black angel institutions, there are many Ivy League educated investors, so on and so forth, so on and so forth. But I think, and this is what's powerful about BrainRap, it's about those things, but it's also not, right? I'm about those things, but I'm also not, right? Or whether there is something about me, and then there's something about my experience, right? And they interacted in a way where I just couldn't give up. At Columbia, our graduation ceremony, I'm trying to remember this exact term, commitment velocity. It was this band, right, of these 4 musicians, and they were just so good. They were improvising, like they were doing all these crazy things. And what happened at one moment is one of them made a mistake, and then the other 3 musicians found a way to make his mistake a song, right? Huh. And I went to the guy. He was a drummer. No, he was a guitarist, I think. Yeah, he was a guitarist. And I went up to him and he said, yeah, like, it's commitment velocity. Like, how much energy, how much current, how much capability, how much push are you putting behind your commitment? Because here's the thing, right? No matter what your commitment is, what the container is, right? What the meaning, what the objective, what the outcome is, you don't need to have any resources. If the velocity and the throughput is so heavy, you will fall out the other side with something.
I love that thing about commitment velocity. That's a really interesting thing to go in and think about. The idea being that you're so clear in your purpose that it's actually, it doesn't matter what resources you have, like in the container itself, it evolves over time, like your idea evolves. And so so the question I always love asking to close things off, and unfortunately I could talk to you for much longer if we had time. If you have one piece of advice for 14-year-old Micah, what would you tell that one piece of advice?
People, they always tell you to be yourself, right? But find out who you are first.
Good.
Once you invest the time to truly test yourself, and testing doesn't have to be like the way I did it, right? It doesn't have to be like some crazy, you have to go and be a basketball star. Testing is simply asking yourself questions objectively, right? What do I want? How do I want to do it? Who do I want to be around? And then listening to the answers from what you say to yourself. So many of us, we can ask ourselves those questions. We call it meditation, we call it self-development, we call it therapy, whatever, right? But we don't listen to the answers and we don't act on them. And then they recur throughout our life, right? We've chosen the wrong career, we've chosen the wrong person to spend our life with, we've chosen this. And they're so, at a certain point, they get so clear, those answers that you gave yourself in your youth at 14, 15, 16, right? That you leave your job or you become an artist or whatever it is. It just happens so far from where you asked yourself the question.
Right.
It doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
And it's very simple. If you just write down what you want, even if it changes, it will change. If you write it down and you're true to it and you have some awareness of the fact that that is what you're looking for, right? That is the most powerful thing that you can do to manifest anything. And you should do it before you manifest anything, because you can manifest things that are not what you want, especially if you're a powerful person. So that's what I would say. Find out, ask, examine, introspect, deep dive into who you are and what you want before you look to get anything. Because that space, that time, that self-reflection time around those ages, 14, 15, 16, right? So actually, if you just take that 2 years, 3 years and spend some time with yourself while you're going to school, right? While you're doing whatever, it will change the trajectory of your whole life.
Micah, thank you so much. I really appreciate this. This is so great to talk to you.
Yeah, it's always great to see you.